Welcome, everyone. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. Welcome to this gathering of NeuroSemantics community from all over the world. I am Mazuki, NeuroSemantics trainer and meta coach from Malaysia. This is the ISNS NeuroSemantics Wisdoms session. And let me just share screen. There we go. The ISNS NeuroSemantics Wisdoms meeting. The purpose of these NeuroSemantics Wisdoms meetings is to have a stronger connection between our international society and the NeuroSemantics Institutes and members from all over the world. It is also a platform for us to refresh our knowledge of NeuroSemantics, to recharge and be inspired with renewed meanings. Also to increase our collaboration and importantly to have lots and lots of fun. That's what the fun guy says. I wish to honor your presence today by greeting each and every one of you through the National Institute. So please unmute your mics so that we can honor everyone by loudly cheering in your national language as I introduce the Institute. So, are you ready? Let's begin by welcoming the Institute of NeuroSemantics Africa. Let's give them a big hand for that.
Hey.
Wow. Hello, everyone.
Hello. And next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Australia.
Yay.
Let's give them a loud cheer to wake them up. It's almost midnight for them. Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Brazil.
Bom dia, Brasil. Vamos lá.
Good morning, bom dia, bom dia.
Bom dia, good morning.
Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Egypt, Middle East, and North Africa.
Hey.
Let's give a loud cheer to all of them. Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Europe and Scandinavia.
Yay.
Father Castro is in Europe, yes. Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics, Hong Kong and China. Let's do it loudly because they are in another room. Next is the Institute of NeuroSemantics Indonesia. Selamat datang, yay, Irfan, good to see you there. And next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Latin America.
Hey.
Buen día.
Bom dia, bom dia.
Buen dia.
Yes. Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics Malaysia, Philippines, and Singapore. Selamat datang semua. Next, the Institute of NeuroSemantics USA. So welcome. Yay. Daryl. Wow. Great to see you.
It's been a while trying to reconnect.
Great to see you. So welcome everyone. It's such a pleasure and honor for me to host this meeting for you. And the agenda for the meeting is that it is scheduled for 60 to 80 minutes. And we'll have the presentation for about 45 minutes. That will be done by Michael. So that's why he's wearing his tie and he's looking all official. The topic for today is Thinking for Humans Part 2, which is on Eureka Thinking Skills. Then we will have the discussions. There'll be about 30 minutes. We'll be breaking into 2 rooms. So there will be about 12 minutes each per discussion group. And I will be sending you the questions for discussion. So you'll be going into groups of 5 so that you can have that discussion. And then we'll wrap up everything with some questions if people have questions, and we'll wrap up everything in about 90 minutes or so. So before that, I'll be making some announcements on NeuroSemantics training. So are you ready for the main event? And everyone, it is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Hall to present Thinking for Humans Part 2, the Eureka Thinking Skills. So let's give a big hand to Michael. Over to you, Michael.
Yay! Yay!
Well, thank you, everybody. As you see, Geraldine and myself, welcome to our bedroom. Except this is the hotel room in Hong Kong. And we're going to turn on the slides here in just a moment. And the theme is Thinking for Humans. And last month, I introduced 5 core thinking skills. I want to review those. And then we're going to add 4 more. And the word is Eureka thinking skills. Eureka, because we're discovering how to create richness in our mental models. So if we can get our slides up, PowerPoint slides.
So I've shared your slide. Do you want to share slides from there as well, Michael?
Well, the PowerPoint slides.
Yes. Okay. There we go.
There you go. Yeah. So thinking for humans. One of the things that I've been discovering in the last 3 years is the core nature of thinking. And when we think about thinking, usually we put it all in one category. But there's many, many facets and kinds and skills of thinking. And that's what we want to get into, because this enables us to think clearly, precisely, accurately, and practically. So our next slide, we're going to do some reviewing. The essentiality of thinking is that everything human depends on it. Everything human. We all don't think the same, and there's all kinds of thinking. And the next slide will start identifying some of the richness of thinking. It seems so obvious, and yet it's not. And the reason that motivates me is that the quality of my thinking is going to determine the quality of my life. So that's what makes this just so critical. So underneath communication skills, underneath strategy processes, underneath all of our programs, our meta programs, our beliefs, underneath everything is thinking. So our next slide. So if everything human depends upon thinking, we can go through this list of everything, every one of these things depends on the quality of thinking. So we talk about coaching, we coach by questioning, but the quality of your coaching is the quality of your questioning, and that is determined by thinking. And so you see learning, quality of life, creativity, wisdom, productivity, everything human, really human, is determined by thinking. So our next slide. So this brings up the question, what is thinking? And the last time, and the next slide, thinking is working an idea over in your mind. So this implies several things. Thinking is effort. So a lot of people avoid thinking and try not to think because it involves the effort of taking an idea, working it over, maybe representing it, maybe questioning it, maybe doubting it, maybe building upon it, developing it, using imagination with it, but working an idea over in the mind. Now, John Dewey, who wrote the book, How We Think, said the origin of thinking is some perplexity, confusion, or doubt, which means that we're really not thinking until we got a question on the mind or a problem or confusion. So when we know something, we tend not to think. It's when we don't know that we think, which gives us maybe a better picture of what thinking is. Next slide. So actually, NLP is a model of thinking. We call it a communication model, but what if we started thinking of NLP as a thinking model? Then when we look at the models inside of NLP, whether it's the representational model or anchoring or the linguistic model or values and beliefs and metaprograms and so on, or states and embodying our states in integrated thinking, all of this involves how we think and the quality of our thinking. And if we want to have better experience, better states, everything comes back to quality of thinking. Next one. So last time we covered 5. I want to cover these real briefly, but as a reminder, because the first 5 thinking skills or thinking powers is the essence of thinking. And if you are not very skilled with these, you're not going to be very skilled in thinking and everything that comes out of thinking. So first is considering. And so considering is when I try on an idea and give it a chance in my mind by at least representing it as fully as I can. And that's considering it. How many times do we not even consider? And we even say sometimes to each other, I won't consider that. The next slide. How do we consider? We start observing innocently and naively, taking something at face value, foregrounding it in the movie in our mind, allowing ourselves to be surprised, because familiarity can dull our ability to think and to embrace not knowing. So considering is the first one, considering. The next one is questioning. So if you're not questioning, you're probably not thinking. So what is the question that you're thinking about? What do you want to know? What are you curious about? What are you exploring and searching? So here's the essence of thinking, to ask questions. The next slide tells a little bit of how. Curiously search and explore. Dance around an idea. Interrogate a subject. Question your answers and wonder using what-if questions. So we start considering, then we question, and then we use skepticism. We doubt. So the third essential thinking power is doubting. We question the source, the validity, the credibility. And what you're doing is doing something very human, and that is being skeptical. What if it's not true? What if it's not so the way that we're thinking about it? The next one identifies how. And so when you start, this is detailing, if you go back to the previous one, that's doubting, and the next one, we don't have the PowerPoint for how to doubt. So doubting is a function of questioning and calling it in question, testing it, and dancing around to see what parts of it may not be so. Then there's detailing. And of course, this is at the essence of NLP, when we go for specificity in what we're saying and presenting, and where we get a see, hear, feel, sensory-based representation of what we're dealing with. And so detailing it makes it real, because now we are creating a mental map in our minds with enough specificity that we can transfer it to someone else's mind. Next slide. Here's the how-to for the detailing. Specify by meta-modeling, give examples, identify the category, extensionalize to see, hear, feel, reference. And then the next one, our fifth one, distinguishing. A lot of times things are fused together and we need to sort them out, like being a doing, being a human being, what I do, my expressions. If you put them together, then self-esteem becomes conditional. So distinguishing and disidentifying so that we don't put two things in the same category that don't belong. And genius is in distinguishing and being able to identify a critical distinction, a critical success factor in whatever we're talking about, enables us to now do the essence of thinking, the core thinking of these 5 skills. So next one. This is on distinguishing, so let's go to the next one. That's the essence of thinking, and this is now a contrast to when we're not thinking. The mind is active, but is not thinking. We may just be reacting. We may be on automatic. We may just be quoting what we've heard, the borrowed thinking, which is where we all start, because we receive the information from someone else and it's borrowed. We didn't come up with it. It's not our thinking. And if that's all, if you stay there, don't question it, don't detail it, don't distinguish it, then it stays pretty superficial and shallow. And shallow and superficial thinking is when we're just on the surface of things. Agenda thinking is when I have an agenda and all my thoughts are trying to push for and push to that agenda. Another form of non-thinking is knowing, which seems really strange. But when you know, then you're not thinking anymore. You're not questioning. You're not doubting. You're not considering. You're knowing. And the same thing with expecting. Once you get to the place of expecting, now there's no surprise. There's more demand, expect, and you stop thinking. We'll skip the next couple because they're just a continuum of thinking, non-thinking. And now the Eureka skills. So we got some exercises that we're going to present to the Zoom rooms tonight, or today, or this morning. And these are the 4 skills here. So in just a minute, we're going to cover inferring, and then organizing, creating, and synergizing. Inferring is what we all do. It's what the brain does. It infers information that's not presented. So 2 sides of inferring is implying and then inferring what's implied. So we got implications in all kinds of things. And if it's logically implied, then the implication in the words or the activities or the statement, we can infer and discover that information. And when it's not legitimate, it becomes mind reading or guessing or imposing upon other people what we think that's not logically implied. So inference becomes a critical skill if we're going to identify and build up really rich mental models for ourselves. So we'll get to more of that in a minute. Once we start considering, questioning, organizing, detailing, we can start organizing, putting our thoughts together, and we invent some structure. And this is strategy. This is how any pattern or framing comes together. And now we got a structure that can do more than just represent an idea. We now can construct all kinds of new ideas and take knowledge to higher levels of conception. Creating is really giving birth to new ideas, and especially using imagination, imagining possibilities, imagining what if. And so now this is creative thinking that puts together, mixes together things that may not have naturally come together. Synergizing is systemic thinking or systems thinking. So we're bringing together into a system and thinking holistically about the whole. And synergizing is what we do when language or distinctions have pulled things apart, like mind-body. And so now we synergize mind-body as inevitably linked together, mind-body emotion. So we hyphenate and pull it together. So these 4 thinking skills enable us to have that aha moment, that eureka, as we come together and generate new levels of consciousness. So the first one is inference. So inference is when you're identifying the hidden premises, assumptions, beliefs that are implied. And every statement is going to have assumptions, premises, beliefs, in order for it to make sense. And when we infer what's implied that enables it to make sense, then we have just discovered something beyond the immediate information. So when we do an inference, we're making a guess. Hopefully it's an educated guess. We may be identifying a class and the membership of that class and thinking contextually. So that's what inference means. The next page should have how we do that. So I'll ask myself, what has to be true? If somebody says this, what has to be true behind that for this to make sense? What has to be true? If somebody says, my second son just sent me a birthday card, obviously there has to be a first son for the word second to make any sense. So some inferences are real simple and obvious. Others are going to be much more complex. So to make an inference, you're going to guess. In science, we make a hypothesis. Here's my guess. I'm going to guess that this happens because of this and this variable. And then we put it to the test to see if that's the way it works. So identify a classification, identify a context, do what is called climb the inferential ladder. And we do that by asking meta questions. Sometimes we do that when we explore a matrix. So we start with some experience and we say, what do you believe about that experience? That belief is what's driving that experience. Let's say that belief is true. And especially if it's a limiting one, most people don't want to consider it true because we judge it as limiting and not helpful. But if it is true, what do you think and believe that enables it to make sense, to be true, at least in our mind? And so we climb that inferential ladder. And what we're doing is listening for assumptions. So here is a Eureka thinking skill, inference. I'm going to infer something from what you've said, and we all do it anyway in our language. But to do it so that it is logically implied takes some skill to really learn how to do that and to make those jumps. So in coaching, we say that we want to get to the heart of things very quickly, to the meanings. And the only way you can do that is with some of the inferential skills. And that's where inference becomes really important. When you go to the first Zoom room today, we've got some statements there that we're going to ask you to talk about. What can you infer that is implied in those statements, and that it'll be really a lot of fun playing with that to see how good you are at inference. So that's inference. The next one is organizing. So organizing is what we do in our minds. Once we have pieces of information, we start putting them together. Some people, when they put information together, really have a mess. The strategy that they come up and invent doesn't work, but for them it may make some kind of a sense. And so organizing, we're always organizing our thoughts, trying to put them in some order. And when you can't do that, when the mind is pretty chaotic and you're trying to figure out, where does this go? Where does this go? What you're looking for is this skill, this power of organization. And when you do that, you're constructing what we call knowledge. So at the lower level, there's information, there's data, but data is not knowledge. So we have to take the information, put it together in some way, and now we construct knowledge. And every field, every science has over the years, over the centuries, put together information in such a way that now there is organized knowledge, a discipline. And so in organizing, we're sequencing data to create a map about something. And that's what we do with strategies. Every strategy about how to run a business, strategy how to motivate yourself, strategy of how to make a decision is a sequence of data which gives us a map about how to achieve that. And this now leads to modeling. Now we can model the structure, specify the strategy, and look to see how we can streamline that. So this is what we mean by organizing thought. And so it's a larger level part of the mind. The next one will be how to. So the next, there we go. To organize thinking, structure the information using some pattern. And so to spell, the pattern will probably be, I externally hear a word, internally I make a picture of that word, construct it, I compare it against a visual remembered picture of that word, what it looked like when I saw it before, and then kinesthetically I have a feeling that's right or that's wrong. So that's what we mean by structuring the information into a pattern so that there's now a process. This creates a knowledge map. And as we do that in certain sequences, we create a strategy. And with the strategy, we can sequence it or resequence it. So that's what we do in NeuroSemantics with the resilience strategy. So the strategy starts off with a trigger of being knocked down. And what's the first thing I need to say to myself, picture to myself, feel, so that I'm starting to move through a set of processes to where I'll bounce back. So that's what a strategy is, and sequencing it. So every strategy takes some time. How long does it take? How long does it take at each step? And so working with the time element in that strategy, and it could be involving statistical facts. So this is organizing your thinking. Every time we do a coaching session, we are essentially asking the person, how is your thinking organized right now, which is not achieving your outcome? And by hearing all the steps, sometimes we see, oh, we just reorganize it a little bit, resequence it, or there's a big piece that's missing. that needs to be put in, or there's too much redundancy and we need to move something out. So how well is your mind organized? Geraldine asked me today, how do I remember so much of the details when I'm talking to someone? And I said, well, I've organized my mind using the meta plays to put things. So I put it there. And then when I want to recall it, I just look at the picture in my mind of that organization. So how do you organize your thinking? The next one is creativity. So creating. And this is a form of organizing, but it's also a form of playing around with new possibilities and imaginations. So we imagine possibilities, we can invent all kinds of things, new facts, new references, metaphors, categories. And so in creativity, we're not limited to the facts or to the variables. We can start imagining possibilities and sometimes mixing these together, jumping out of the frame and thinking outside of the box enables us to have completely new perspectives of things. And so this is creativity. Creativity generally is in the context of uncertainty and ambiguity. And so when we brainstorm, we say no judgment, just throw out ideas and then maybe mix them up, maybe piggyback one idea on another. And we're trying to just create something. Later we'll evaluate, is it possible? Is it realistic? Is it useful? But first, we want the brain just to, in a playful, creative way, mix things together to see what we can come up with. The next slide is the how. So how do you do that? Well, play with an idea. Turn it over, reverse it, turn it inside out, look at it from first perceptual position, second, third. So play around with it. Combine different ideas in different ways and just notice what arises. And what we're doing is imagining new possibilities, mixing things up. Oftentimes creative things happen by accident because somebody accidentally mixed one thing in with another or confused one thing with another. And then when they step back, they realize, well, we do now see some new possibilities of what we can do with it. So to create a new category, eliminate old categories. And our brains think in categories, categorically, and whatever category you put something, it becomes real in that category. But it may not be real at all, but it's real in that category. So creativity, also suggestive, hypnotic language can help us to think out of the box. Where there's creativity, there's adaptability and flexibility. I've mentioned multiple perspectives. And then when it comes to playing, using metaphors. We're here in Hong Kong right now doing PCMC, and one of the skills that we presented yesterday was using metaphors when you're coaching. And today I heard a lot of different metaphors by clients who came up with metaphors that helped them to create a new sense of reality. One lady that really impressed me, who was working with problems and mistakes, then she said she felt stuck, and when she's stuck, then everything is still. And something came up, and she talked about moving, and I said, moving like what? And her metaphor was moving like a river. And so she took it, started playing with it, and created a sense of herself moving through life, sometimes moving around a rock, a mistake, a problem, an obstacle, sometimes pushing it. But whatever she's doing, she's always moving like a river, and her intention is to move to the sea. So metaphors. The final one is synergy and synergizing. So when you synergize, you bring two things that have been opposites and you put them together, and out of that emerges an emergent property. So find and play with the variables of an idea, and especially if things are polarized. See how you can synergize them, how they can work together rather than working in opposition. And so we're going to be transcending maybe linear thinking. And as we transcend it, looking at how that maybe there's multiple causes, multiple perspectives. And when we do that in synergizing, oftentimes we're looking for that leverage point that is going to enable us to bring about significant transformation. How to synergize? Next one. So identify the variables, and oftentimes these variables are polarized. And so how could these two things work together? We've done that in NeuroSemantics when we asked how can meaning and performance come together? Some people are meaning makers. They are great idea people, dreamers. Some people are performers, and they are doers. They can get things done. They don't have many dreams. A lot of times performers, dreamers don't have a lot of performance. What if we put them together? So the axis gives us a picture of identifying, combining these opposites. And there's so many of those things, self and others. So identify the relatedness that helps us to begin to synergize two things. And to do this, we think systemically. What if this is a system? And it works more in a circle rather than linear. We may want to identify what's occurring simultaneously rather than do one thing, stop, wait for something else to occur. Integrate the time into the process, watching for emergence, looking for the leverage points. These are ways of synergizing. So we now have 4 thinking powers, thinking skills, by which we can construct brand new and more complicated, more enriched concepts, ideas in our mind. And so with inferring, organizing, creating, and synergizing, we have the ability to now invent brand new things. I think the next slide speak to this. So the Eureka Thinking Skills. And the design of all of this is not detailing back down to the essentials like the first 5. Those are the foundational skills that enable our thinking to be reality-oriented and factual. These enable us to move up, invent, build, construct new ideas, understandings, patterns in the meta place. And this is what, if you do it well, and realistically with these Eureka thinking skills, then we truly become creators of our realities and the architects of our future. So that's why these are really important. You can infer and or invent all kinds of patterns for thinking. And of course, these come out of these Eureka skills. And you can see, got a list of some of the meta programs. And of course, these meta programs are meta that's running the other thinking patterns, and they're created by these higher skills. And the next one. And so now, wrapping all of that up, trying to get through that quickly so that we can have some questions and then look at some of the applications of this with the questions.
Let's take some questions before we go to the breakout room. So, Father James, you've already raised your hand. Go ahead.
Yeah. Hello, Michael, Geraldine.
Hey.
So my question is this. You said that when we know, we don't think. It's something that is, when we know, we don't think. But knowing also involves understanding, or knowing also involves remembering. So partly it's a way of thinking.
Well, you just mentioned 3 kinds of thinking, and you put them all together but they're separate.
Okay.
So remembering is when you make a learning and then you encode that learning and you put it in your memory bank. Now it's in your background knowledge. Now you don't have to remember it. Now it's unconscious thinking. So it's no longer conscious thinking, it's unconscious. I tied my tie tonight, but don't ask me how I did it. It's unconscious. And so it comes from memory, and memory frees us to think. And if I had to think about everything, then I wouldn't have, it'd be quite limited. But because we can learn and remember, we can encode it. I mentioned last time, neurons that fire together wire together. And that wiring of the neurons creates a pattern, and now it's automatic. Repeat it, it's automatic. And so that's one kind of learning. And when you're doing automatic thinking, you're not thinking. You're driving your car and you're not thinking. You're riding a bicycle. But then there's knowing and understanding. Understanding is really interesting because you're standing under a knowledge. So everything you understand, you have entered into a set of data that you constructed in a certain way, and now you stand under it, supporting it. And so understanding, Richard Bandler has a chapter on the submodalities of understanding in using your brain for a change. And I have a chapter, or I think 2 chapters, in submodalities going meta on the structure of understanding. Because we want people to understand things, they have to have so much data, they have to structure it together in a certain way for them to now understand it. And when they practice it repeatedly, after a while, we say they know it. And now when they know it, they don't have to think about it anymore.
Thank you,
that's
Michael.
That's why we say that what's really dangerous to thinking is knowing. Oh, I know that. It's a way of avoiding thinking and refusing to try something on and consider it afresh.
Yeah. Thank you.
There's a question in the chat from Ronald. The question is, this model has some relationship with philosophical processes. So it's a statement. So I'm not sure what the question is. Ronald, would you like to explain that?
I was thinking the process of question things and not accept, and how philosophical this pattern sounds to me. So I'd like to know if there is some relationship in the philosophical process and this pattern.
Well, the short answer is no. Although What we're talking about is, how do we know what we know? How do you know what you know? And that's epistemology, which is a philosophical subject. But instead of going there and philosophizing about it, we've gone at it from the standpoint of skills. What are the skills of thinking? And we start with the skills of thinking, the powers to think is considering, questioning, doubting, detailing, distinguishing. And that grounds all your thinking. Now you can take what you are coming out with, and you can start organizing it, inferring, you can create, you can synergize. And we're going to call those the Eureka skills, the aha skills that come together. So we're putting it in the context of what to do and how to function, rather than asking philosophical questions about how does the brain do this, or can we get a computer to do this? We're looking at it directly as sub-skills of communication.
Okay, I'd like to have one more question before we go to the breakout room. Anyone has got any questions? Going once, going twice. Okay, so I've put into the meeting chat the PDF document for the questions that you'll be discussing today. So let me just put the questions on the screen, and at the same time, I'd like you to download this question so that when you get to the Zoom room, the breakout rooms, you'll have these questions to be to discuss. The first one is, you infer that someone has implied. When there is an implication, you can discover it by means of inference, which is inferential thinking, and then inferential questioning. An implication is what is logically implied or built into a word or statement. This is an advanced skill, and the misuse of it is mind reading, imposing our reasoning and conclusions. So the first question is to test yourself. What is implied in the following? It's 11 o'clock and he's not here yet. I've really had it with John. Susie always gets what she wants. Well, another wasted as usual. So, and another one is, I noticed that you had time to do what you wanted. So those are the examples that you'll be using question one. And the question two is, when you organize how to do things in your mind, you have a strategy. In NLP, we use questions to identify a person's strategy for whatever experience he or she is having. What is your strategy for integrating a learning so it stays within you? Share with each other your strategies. So I'm going to, I hope that everyone, you've already downloaded the questions. I'm going to put you into rooms of 5, and you'll have about 12 minutes for the discussion. Yes, 5 per room. You'll have 12 minutes for discussion, and then we'll come back. We'll have some questions for about 5 minutes, and then you have an opportunity to go to the next Zoom room. So, ready or not? Here we go. So I'll be seeing all of you in 12 minutes time, and remember to have fun when you are in the room. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back, everyone. Yes, I hope that you had fun discussing in the Zoom room. It's just that I noticed there are a couple of rooms, there are not that many people. so we had to shift around, and I hope you like that. Now, let's just take about 5 minutes. If there are any questions that anyone has, we'll take the questions for about 5 minutes, and then we can go to the questions 3 and 4. So, who's ready to go with a question or comment from your discussion in the Zoom, in the breakout rooms just now?
Mazuki, there was a question in the Zoom room, in the chat earlier that you didn't see. Just check that out.
Let me see where is my chat? Oh, there. Yeah. Okay, is that from Mario? So our job as coaches or change agents is to make people or companies think differently, and this could be the model. Do you consider this a model about how to lead the thinking?
Well, yeah, that's the whole design of why we're doing this. This is the training called Thinking for Humans, Brain Camp #1. And it's got 14 thinking skills. And that's what we're aiming to do, to train people to be better thinkers.
Thank you, Mario and Michael. Next question. Anyone has got any questions? Or are you all raring to go into the breakout rooms?
Oh, we have a discussion here in China, and it's kind of very faint line that whether it's inferencing or whether it's mind reading. Like for example, we say that it's already 11 o'clock. He's not here yet. You're thinking that, okay, logically it means that he's late. There was a commitment that he should come at 11 o'clock. But also it could mean that the person is angry with this person, that he's not on time. So there's a very faint difference as to whether it's mind reading or it's inferring. So how do we ensure that it's not mind reading? Is there any specific criteria?
Yes. So take the very first thing on the how to, and it says, ask the question, what is logically implied? Is it logically implied? So if it's not logically implied, then it's mind reading. It's a possibility, but it's not logically implied. So he could be angry to make that statement, or he could be concerned, or he could be interested, or dozens of other possibilities. But those would be more mind reads that if we state them as definitively.
Okay. Anyone has got any other question?
Actually, I do. I have a little bit of a confusion here about the usage of this. Is it about that we see the facts, that what could be stated there as a fact, and then we build on, or do we use it as multiple possibilities and we're going to test later? I'm confused which one we need to go, and we're exercising for.
Well, to do inferencing, we're going to get the facts, and we're looking for the frame that has to be there in order to say this. And if it doesn't have to be there, but it could be there, then it's a guess, and it's a guess that maybe, may not. So now we present it tentatively. It's our mind read. It's our guess, but it's not logically implied. So it's not forced. Whereas if it is a true implication, then it'll be logically implied, and it'll be more factual.
Okay, so if I get it correctly, then it could be both, but it's about how I tackle them. So if it's logically implied, then the facts implies this, and it seems that this is the main frame that it is there. Or if it is tentatively, or it's like it's an assumption, then I can use, yes, I can guess, but I have to use it as tentatively, and I just check with whoever, or check with myself about if the reality of it, am I getting it correctly?
Right. So the first would be the inference, and the second would be the guess.
Yes. Okay.
And this makes a distinction between when we're truly inferring and when we're just guessing.
Yeah. So it's mainly about what's not said, listening to what's not said. So, for example, if the person is talking about the father and not mentioning the mother, for example, then there is something about the mother that I need to ask about, or there must be a mother somehow. So what is there? So
yes. I have in the PCMC manual maybe 12 statements that are humorous inferences. And so somebody says to a medical doctor, how many dead people do you do autopsies on? And he says, well, let me think. Well, the logical inference of autopsy is that the person is dead. It's not a guess.
yeah.
Someone would be really cruel to do autopsies on people who aren't dead.
Yeah. Thank you, Michael.
Yeah, thank you. So let's go to the second breakout room. I'll recreate the rooms. That will be, yeah, I'll recreate it to about 6 breakout rooms, because quite a number of people need to remain in this room. They are doing translation work. So hopefully there'll be about 5 people per room. So use questions. The third and the fourth question in the breakout room, you'll be there for about 12 minutes again, and then we'll come back and wrap things up. So see you in 12 minutes time. Welcome back. Welcome back. Hi, Izat. Great to see you.
You too, Mazuki.
Yes, I think we have everyone back in this room. Right, so welcome back, everyone. Let's just take 5 minutes for any questions that you want to ask while Michael is here. Ask questions so that he can go think. So, anyone has any questions? In the chat box there, Sandra has put in, please could you give more examples of for? So what's for?
Yes. Identifying different words that we could synergize.
Okay.
So obviously we're all in NLP, neurology, linguistics, and programming. And of course, that's an example of synergizing the three as a now interdisciplinary discipline. Einstein put together time and space, created time-space continuum. So those be some examples.
Michael, I have a question. Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Is that the one, Teresa? I noticed that you had time to do what you wanted, means he has done or not.
Yes. What we are in our discussion, we could only find the person I was observing. So we didn't figure out you has done or you have the person done or not. So can you explain more about this sentence on inferring?
So the sentence we were playing with says, I noticed that you had time to do what, and then emphasis, you wanted. So what's implied by the person who makes that statement is, what's implied is that the person is using time by choice and not by request or control.
One more question.
Could it mean that could it be that what's implied is also that the person doesn't always do that, that sometimes they do what they don't want?
Well, that would be that would fall under the category of guess. It's a guess, and we can always check it out with the person and see. When we're doing inferential listening, we're trying to flesh out the assumptions. What is the person making that statement assuming that has to be true in order for the statement to make any sense? So obviously, the person who says, I notice that you always have time to do what you want, has some relationship to the person he's talking to. So that's an assumption that has to be. This person knows this other person, and this other person is correcting the person. I notice that you always have time to do what you want. So there's some correction going on, or some so those would be the assumptions that just have to be there for the sentence to make sense.
There's a question here. When we work with someone's meta programs and they expand their meta program to be more flexible, is it the result of Eureka Thinking?
Probably, because most of the meta programs are polarities, and when you start synergizing them, so it's not either or, but it's both and, it's more of a system. So when we're global in detail, when you put them together, it's meta detailing, and it's both simultaneously, and now it's a new construction emergence, meta detailing. So it's not either or.
Right. Another question here to answer the second. To answer the second exercise to elicit our learning strategy, do we use the NLP strategy elicitation?
Yeah, that'd be the beginning place. How do you do that? Where does it start, and when does it finish, and what are the steps in between?
From Teresa, does it apply to the cognitive distortions too?
I'm assuming you're asking if we synergize the cognitive distortions, and there's no, because they're not so much polarities. In fact, polarity thinking, either or thinking, is one of the cognitive distortions. But these are childish thinking patterns that we all grew up through, and which we graduate from and move into adult thinking patterns rather than the cognitive distortions.
Thank you.
From Mario, does the coach has to ask questions outside of the client's inferences thinking organization?
Yeah, fascinating question. If you do, then you will be challenged that person's thinking, and it may or may not even make sense, which is why we usually pace, and then lead. So we enter into their inferential thinking patterns and then try to push it to an extreme or lead out of there. If you start somewhere else, it may not have enough rapport, may not have enough pacing to even make sense.
Thank you, Michael. And any other question? One last question, burning question that you have?
Burning question.
That being the case, then I'd like Michael, if you would like to summarize or wrap up today's session.
We are thinkers. All of us most essentially think, and the quality of our thinking is the quality of our lives. And every day we're challenged in our thinking, and the temptation is to avoid thinking. It's a lot easier to live your life like a zombie without having to do this effort to think. And yet, if we're going to unleash our potentials and be the best versions of ourselves, thinking is required. To really think. How many of our bad decisions, what was I thinking? And we weren't really thinking. And that was the problem. And in organizations, 70% of the decisions of most boards fail. 70% of mergers and acquisitions fail. So what were they thinking? What quality of thinking were they doing? I think our ability to help people think and be good critical thinkers, so we just don't go along with the crowd and just do what is politically correct, but we do some clear thinking and help people do clear thinking. And I think populations of people, when they vote, if they can be clear about their thinking, I think this is going to be more and more of a problem in the future as social media is influencing us sometimes in ways that we're not even aware of. And if we can just keep our thinking skills sharp and help other people, I think we will be healthier for it.
Thank you very much, Michael, for that wonderful summary. Let's give Michael a big hand for that. And everyone, give a big hand to yourself. So before we end, just a couple of announcements. The first announcement is I hope that you will go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and click the notification bell, because whenever we have wisdoms, I will upload the video to our YouTube channel. So if you subscribe, then automatically you'll be notified of the new video. So the announcements that I'd like to make is that currently Michael is running PCMC in Hong Kong. I'm just looking at Michael's face, whether it shows that he's just finished training for the whole day. Wonderful. Both of them, they don't look as if they've been spending the whole day in the training room. The next announcement is that our wisdoms session will be on the 11th of November. And this will be the third installment of the Thinking for Humans. So take note of that date. And the other announcement is NSTT 2024 in Malaysia. It will be from the 18th of May to the 1st of June. And the 31st of October will be the cutoff for the next discount. So please register as quickly as you can before the 31st of October to take advantage of the discount. So before we end, customary for us to take photos so that I can upload. Question from Sandra here. Confirm the name of the YouTube channel. I just Google NeuroSemantics. I think that's the name of the YouTube channel. Right. So as customary, we'd like to take photos of everyone. So put on your makeup. Make sure that you have your makeup nice. Yeah.
Manda foto, gente, lá no grupo, vocês viram?
Yeah. So putting any perfume will not show in the in the picture. So I'll take the first panel. Ready? 3, 2, 1. Right. So you've got one there, and next one. Oh, I see. Abdan put in the heart shape. So if you want to put heart shape, you've got Ecuador there. Okay, ready? 3, 2, 1. Right. So we've got both panels there. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for being here. Thank you for your presence and participation in this meeting. It is such a pleasure to be meeting all of you. Daryl, first time I'm seeing you since ACMC in Grand Junction. So such a pleasure to see you and everyone else. I look forward to meeting all of you in our next meeting. That's on the 11th of November. And I'd like to sign off today. And I wish you, all of you, an exceptional quality of life filled with happiness, creativity, and fulfillment. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a good day or have a good night. So God bless all of you. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.